Hi, my name is Dee Harris. I'm the artist and the owner of Designs by Harris. Today I'm going to go through making a stained glass panel. First, I designed the panel by making a cartoon. I use Dragonfly for designing my patterns on the computer, which lets me choose different selections of glass and calculates how much I shall need. I print the pattern twice, one backward, which I shall print on adhesive paper for the pattern and place on the back of the glass, and the other I print right side up, which I'll use for my soldering template. I have foil shears, which I use to cut out the backward adhesive pattern. The foil shears remove a strip from the pattern, which allows for the thickness of the copper foil, which will be placed around each piece of glass, each piece of the puzzle, if you will. Every piece of the pattern must be cut out, which I use to cut out separate pieces of glass, which will again have its edges covered with copper foil. I put all my cut adhesive-backed pieces on my template so I know which pieces of the puzzle will be adjacent to each other. If I could cut those pieces out together, I could save a lot of time by making just one cut between the pieces and save a lot of wasted glass. I make sure I have at least a ½ inch leeway around the glass before placing on the pattern for easier cutting. Once I have selected and thoroughly cleaned the glass, I remove the adhesive backing from the pattern piece and adhere to the back side of the glass. There are two sides of a sheet of glass. The back side is usually smooth, while the front side may have texture, which is harder to cut. This explains why when I print the pattern, I print it backwards. The tools I need for cutting glass is a pair of running pliers, which tip is shaped like a half circle. When used, the semicircle will cause the score mark, the cut, to run, start to break, and then break the glass into two pieces. I also use an oil cutter, as the oil helps the cutter wheel to score more easily and cleaner. Other tools I occasionally use are a yardstick, L and T squares, grazing pliers, and nipper pliers. Many times I'll use my knees to help me break a straight cut from a large piece of glass. Oftentimes I am able to use my hands to break apart a cut if the pieces are large enough and not too curved. But most often I use the running pliers as most of my puzzle pieces are curvy and small. The running pliers have a set screw which can be adjusted to varying thicknesses of glass. I have a bandsaw that cuts glass for detailed and very small cuts, which would be harder but not impossible to cut by hand. Before cutting a piece of glass on the bandsaw or grinding the glass on the grinder, I put a layer of Vaseline atop the pattern paper. Both the saw and the grinder use water for cutting. Therefore, the pattern will deteriorate very quickly if I did not add some protection. There are other waxes available to use and purchase, but I find that Vaseline works well. Once the glass is cut to shape, I remove the adhesive pattern from the piece. I'll place all the cut pieces on the template, making certain all pieces fit together properly before I adhere the copper foil around the edges. I then adhere copper foil tape with an adhesive back to all the edges of the cleaned and dry glass. I start tacking the puzzle pieces together by soldering with 50-50 solder. I then cover all the copper foil together with a thin layer of solder called tinning that holds the entire panel together. I then flip the panel over to the front side, tack the corner of the bevels into place since they have more depth on the front side, which made it difficult to tack when it was upside down. From there, I tin the entire front with the 50-50 solder. Solder will not stick to copper foil unless flux is used to clean the foil. I make sure to clean the copper, soldering iron, or whatever I will be soldering. I also use a sal ammonic block to clean off the tip of my soldering iron. I'm going to put a scalloped copper foil around the edge of the panel to make a nice frame or border. But first I must wash the oily flux from the glass so the copper foil adhesive will stick. For best results, your glass must be totally clean and dry. I adhere the scalloped foil with the scalloped side facing the front of the panel. I burnish the foil down with a popsicle stick to flatten. There are many tools, such as a fid, available for this purpose. Once the foil is in place, I tin. Now I use 60-40 tin lead solder to run a bead down all the copper so that it is smooth on both sides and the edges of the panel. I use copper wire, which I tin with solder, formed into a circle on which I shall attach the chain, which will be used to hang the panel. The copper rings are soldered to the back of the panel in the most inconspicuous and strong place possible. The placement of the rings and strength of the chain must securely hold the panel where it will be hung. Once the soldering is done, clean the panel really well with the most comfortable hot water possible and some soap. I use Dawn dishwashing detergent, but you can also find special soaps to clean flux. Dry both sides of the panel. Now I add a patina to the solder to add a vintage look. Some people like the silver look of the solder. I'm not real cool with that. I use either a copper or black patina, depending on the color of glass I used. Dark glass shows nicely with copper patina, while light glass is enhanced with black patina. Completely wash off the patina, which is acid, just like the flux. To the dry panel, I sparingly apply a chrome polish, which gives the panel a finished and elegant look. Again, there are many kinds of products from which to choose to polish. Buff off the polish, clean the glass with glass cleaner and a rag, and you are done, ready to hang up your new stained glass window where the light will shine and you'll get rainbows all over your room. Thank you so much for being here and learning about how to create a stained glass panel. Again, my name is Dee Harris. Aloha.